Mayor, why don't you just lead us off?
Do you want to start right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I want to welcome all to this very fine fall day. We see the sunshine today. So obviously we have more daylight hours, or so to speak, and the temperatures have warmed up, meaning we're using less energy. All of us are in agreement that the goal of the future is to use less energy. And I do know that the utility companies in northern Michigan are very involved with using less energy. But before us this November, we have a ballot proposal that is mandating that the state constitution incorporates some rules that say by the year 2025, that 25% of the energy used must be from renewable sources. Currently, the law states that by the year 2015, that 10% must be there. Light and Power, a utility that I'm very familiar with, has been able to achieve that. But that's through a lot of cost to its customers. Right now, you're dealing with cost that for renewable energy that can easily be twice what it is from conventional means. Before me today, we have a panel of individuals who are here to help you better understand this. We have Chuck Korn, who is the Garfield Township Supervisor. We have Larry Inman, who's Chair of the Grand Traverse County Commission. Chris Maxbauer, who is the Grand Traverse County Commissioner. Ben LaCrosse, who is District 9 Director of the Michigan Farm Bureau. And Tony Anderson, General Manager of Cherryland Electric. I have a lot of things to add in the very end, but I'm going to turn it over to someone who represents the townships in Michigan, Mr. Korn, and to give you his thoughts on this issue.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The Michigan Townships Association represents 1,243 townships across the state, and not one of them wants to lose their local control over where turbines and solar panels will be located. That's why our entire statewide association took a position in opposition to Proposal 3. If Proposal 3 passes, Michigan townships won't be able to decide if they want turbines, like some townships have done in their state, or if they don't want turbines, which other townships have done. As local units of government, it is our responsibility to represent and uphold the voice of our local residents, and Proposition 3 changes all that. We don't want out-of-state special interests to drive the local zoning process. We need to protect our families and businesses from this costly constitutional mistake.
Thank you so much for those comments. Next we have Larry Inman with a perspective from the county of Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the invitation today to speak on this matter. As a member of the Michigan Association of Counties, they did call myself and Commissioner Maxbauer to represent the Michigan Association of Counties here at this event. And the State Association of County Commissioners have made it very clear that they oppose this proposal and that it's an unfunded, unfair mandate on city government, township government, and county government. We do not believe that the state should mandate zoning or overturn zoning and planning in a home rule state. So therefore, requirements of windmills and other types of projects that are going to be mandated that supersede township rule, we do not agree with. I will, however, tell you that Grand Traverse County has been one of the leading counties in the state of Michigan that has pursued energy efficiency and energy gains. We have worked very closely with Northwestern Michigan Council of Governments and SEEDS, and we've obtained grants for energy efficient boilers and energy efficient lightings over the past 2 to 3 years, and we have met our goal of 20% reduction in overall utility costs for Grand Traverse County, which we're very pleased about. We've, over the last couple of years, put in solar panels at the pool, which over a period of time will save us funds for energy usage for the use of the pool and those boilers that help heat the pool. So we've gone a number of steps in the direction of to cut down the cost to not only the taxpayers for the cost of local government, county government, but to make us more efficient in the energy savings in the way we operate here at the county. So we're real pleased with that, but we think that the state is heading in the wrong direction in terms of these unfunded mandates that we feel are unreasonable and really violate the home rule of the Constitution of the state of Michigan.
Great, thank you, Larry. And next we have Commissioner Chris Maxbauer. She represents some of the largest communities within Grand Traverse County, being a representative servicing part of Garfield Township and also half of the city. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as Supervisor Korn or Chairman Inman. I will tell you that I practice what I preach. I believe in energy conservation. I bicycled here today in heels, and I do it frequently, whenever humanly possible, or whenever I can get from one meeting to the next on bicycle. That's the way I travel. I compost. I also sit on the Commission on Aging Board, and I will tell you that there is a severe economic hardship among seniors in Grand Traverse County right now. This is going to put an added burden on senior citizens. I think not only is there a loss of local control, there's going to be a burden on business. Our utility bills are going to go up if this passes. And that concerns me, and it concerns me greatly. And for those reasons, I don't support this.
Thank you, Chris. Next we have Ben LaCrosse, who will represent the Farm Bureau's opinion on this issue.
Michigan farmers and farmers statewide have had a long history of supporting renewable fuels in many different capacities, be it wind, solar, ethanol, biodiesel, but we feel this proposal goes too far. Our organization supported the Renewable Portfolio Standard of 2008, which mandated 10% of all electricity sources from renewable sources by 2015. That went through the legislative process. It brought all stakeholder groups together to work out and have the debate about energy policy, about what's good for our citizens, what's good for business, and what's good for agriculture. That was good policy then, and it's still good policy now. But we oppose Prop 3. The state constitution is not the place to have the debate on energy policy for the state of Michigan. We don't take amending the Constitution lightly in our organization, and I don't think citizens of the state of Michigan do as well. There are unintended consequences of amending the state constitution. What if we can't meet the 25% cap? The legislature can't amend a constitutional amendment. And stakeholders, although the citizens of the state of Michigan vote on this issue, stakeholder groups don't have a say in this process. Farmers around the state need consistent, reliable, and affordable energy. We're concerned that Prop 3 will raise prices for our energy and are concerned about the unintended consequences of this proposition, and that's why we oppose it. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. And lastly, we have Tony Anderson, General Manager of Cherryland Electric. Tony's one of those individuals who's going to have to implement this standard if it is actually approved by the voters, so he can tell you about some of the difficulties he's going to encounter.
Well, for us, it's not about being against renewable energy. It's about being for affordable energy. We need forms of energy that are cost competitive so we can do business in Michigan and our homes and farms we serve have affordable prices. And there's also the constitutionality issue. One of the questions I've gotten most often from my membership is the fact that there's 30 other states that have a mandate like this. And that's true. There are other states who have a mandate higher than Michigan, but not one of them has a mandate in their constitution. And that's one of the big problems. We're legislating by constitutional amendment. We're taking the debate out of the process. We're taking our senators and our representatives out of the process. And also another little known fact that people don't know about is the fact that all these other states, they have exemptions for the municipalities and their cooperatives that allow them to not be bound by the mandate. And the reason for that is a lot of the municipals and cooperatives in particular serve the rural areas that are sparsely populated. My electric cooperative has 11 meters per mile. Consumers Energy, DTE, they serve the large areas. They may have a 50, 60 meters per mile. We just have a little different business model, and we're getting lumped in with everybody else, and that's an issue. And lastly, there's the issue of unemployment. In a lot of the rural cooperative areas, we have higher unemployment issues. And you're going to be putting a burden on people who already have a burden. At my electric co-op, I did some math today. If I had to add 25% renewables to my cost, I would be adding 8% to everybody's power bill on a monthly basis. On an average $70 bill, that's $5.75 per month that people would have to pay who are struggling to pay already. So for us, it's affordability, and it comes at a bad time when we haven't quite recovered from the recession we've been going through the past few years as well.
Thank you, Tony. I think all of us here today are encouraging the voters to vote no on this proposal. I think it's bad legislation for 3 reasons. I think one is the issue of cost, which has been talked about today. The other is about local control. Should we be able to control what our utilities are doing? And the last is, do we really want to mess with the Michigan Constitution for this type of issue? We have people in the legislature that we send there every other year to deal with this issue, and that's where it appropriately should be. And again, this will cost consumers, businesses, residents additional amounts of money. So the conclusion I think we've all reached here today is we're encouraging you to vote no for this proposal. We think it's best for the people of northwestern Michigan to do so. So remember when you go to the polls which way you're voting. And with that, I would open up for any questions to any of the members up here today. Thank you.
Well, I'm curious, what is it more of a local control? Is there cost to local governments as well with your operational costs? You have to implement something.
Well, I'll just speak for myself. I think you've heard me many times talk about it having local control for the city of Traverse City on a host of issues. So that's obviously one of them. But I also have to do my best to represent the best interest of the citizens of the city that I'm elected to serve. And I do know that, as you've heard from Mr. Anderson, that the cost will go up and it will be substantial. Currently, renewable energy is costing light and power customers twice what the standard rate is. It's not going to get cheaper overnight. And so you can expect a higher bill. Any other comments?
No, other than, there's a cost for the investment for these energy efficient options, for windmills or dams, operation of dams, other types of energy efficient options that are out there for businesses and local governments. And I think we're all doing our best as we move forward with our ability to budget for energy efficient lighting and boilers and state-of-the-art electrical equipment, those kinds of things that are driving our costs down. But there's a big investment that in declining revenues for local governments that we are seeing today from most of our only resource for revenues are property taxes, and those have continued to spiral down. And we expect the next 5 years to have fairly level or maybe somewhat lower revenue sources, and to put a mandate on local governments to say you must invest in these infrastructures and make it unfunded as an unfunded mandate, we feel is wrong.
So anybody else?
I would add that the additional cost for electricity is going to be passed along to customers of sewer and water, who depend heavily on electricity.
Well, not only that, but it's we have buildings.
Right.
Our utility bills are not low, and it will impact our budgets and services to the community.
Steve Rawlings with DTE Energy. I'd like to know if anybody would like to comment about where the proponents are getting the funding for this measure. If you'd like to make any characterization or comments about the proponents of Proposal 3 and where they're from.
little bit I know about the money behind Proposal 3 is it's a California billionaire is one of the biggest contributors, and he has an interest in the wind industry. So there's some, I don't know if that's entirely ethical, but he's putting his money behind a proposal that he has financial interest in. And it's out-of-state money trying to dictate what we do in Michigan. That's why when you put it in the Constitution, you take it out of the citizens' hands in Michigan because their elected senators and representatives don't get the debate, they don't get the discussion, they don't get to make good legislation. We're legislating by 30-second commercials in the next couple weeks, and it's not good.
Yeah, and I would note that the whole concept of 25 by 25 sounds really good. I mean, all of us would like to save energy, plus we would like to have renewable energy if possible. But you have to study the issue, first of all, to find out if it's feasible, and at what cost is that feasible. And that's something that hasn't been done. So we're being led by emotions rather than by science and common sense on this issue. Anybody else? Mr. Freilich, you must have a question.
I can always find a question for you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry if I missed it at the beginning there, but did anybody address the constitutionality issue of going head to head with the state constitution versus the local zoning ordinances, and are we in for a constitutional crisis if this passes also?
Who addressed that?
Chuck did.
I did mention the fact that you're taking power away from the local units of government and consolidating more power in the state. And I really don't know many people that are happy about that.
Yeah, and I would add that I just don't think the Michigan Constitution should be messed with at the whim of some special interest groups. And we're seeing a lot of that this year. And this proposal is just bad public policy, in my opinion. We need time to study this issue thoroughly and to find out what the real cost is and what the feasibility of accomplishing this really is.
Other than I certainly, would feel that if something like this passed, there would be a challenge, in my opinion, from state associations and like the Municipal League and the Michigan Association of Counties and the Township Association and other associations, and this whole drive down in Lansing right now with these unfunded mandates that they're placing on local governments. That's a continued battle that we're against and working on down with our lobbying groups that we belong to. But for the state to mandate and overrule the home rule position of cities, municipals, townships, and villages, I think there really is a constitutional violation there in terms of what the intent of home rule is, and that is each local municipality in the way of zoning and planning make those local decisions for the best for their community where they're located. And for the state to step in and say, you no longer have that ability, I think is really of high question and would be challenged.
I also believe the in-state requirement will be challenged if this passed. The fact that we would have to purchase 25% of our energy from in-state resources, there's a good likelihood that that's a violation of the federal Constitution. So you're going to get a challenge there too if it passes. There's cheaper wind out of state, there's cheaper wind in Canada.
And I guess from our perspective, we would just as soon see a no vote so we don't have to challenge the issue in the courts and move Michigan forward in other positive ways. Mr. Freilich, you had another call.
Yeah, can any of you up there recall the last time there was an issue, a statewide issue like this that brought a group of you together? And again, why was this one so important to do so, to get involved in that process? And maybe you kind of touched on it a moment ago, but this is an unprecedented territory, but it certainly doesn't happen every time there's a ballot issue to have elected officials speak out about it.
I agree, and I don't recall anything similar, quite honestly. And I think all of us are here because this is a very unique issue that someone has brought forward, and I think you've heard from comments here today that they've been brought from special interest groups, not even from the state of Michigan. And I don't think we're supposed to be messing with our state constitution at the whim of outsiders. But other comments?
Yeah.
everybody turns their lights on when they go home from work. Everybody watches TV. Everybody plugs their cell phones in at night. We become vastly more dependent on energy, on electricity in our day-to-day lives now maybe than we have ever before. I think the one good example of is what happened on March 2nd when we lost power to the region for a good week, and how crippling that was to the citizens. Energy is part of our fiber, whether it's in our homes, in our businesses, or our place of work. So I think that's why we're very sensitive to placing an issue of this much importance in the constitutional realm instead of having the debate in the legislature where it's most appropriate.
You know, the only winners if this passes are members of the bar.
Follow-up question, if I may. This one's for Mr. Anderson. Again, Steve Rawlings with DTE Energy, and we are also opposed to the measure. But I'm curious as to your perspective, Tony, in terms of if this does pass, how this will impact our region, given that we live so close to such good wind zones along the shore and Lake Michigan, and basically the best productive wind zones in Michigan. Will our region be adversely impacted compared to other areas of the state?
You could say that. The best wind we have is offshore. If you want to get good wind, you're going to stick it in Lake Michigan. And we had a record year for tourism here. Tourists going to keep coming if they go to Sleeping Bear Dunes and see windmills across the water? I don't know. Yeah, and you talk about the loss of local control. Who knows how many windmills we'd have? There's just so many unknowns that it's hard to say. But yeah, the wind offshore is really good.
And I might add that Lake Michigan has better winds than typically Lake Huron or Lake Erie, which would encourage developers to put them all on here on Lake Michigan, which I don't think our local residents would appreciate that much. Any final questions or any final comments from anyone?
I'd just like to thank each of you for your leadership on this issue, and I appreciate the fact that you are opinion leaders in our community, willing to voice your opinion for the benefit of our fellow voters, because this is an important issue. So thank you to each of you.
And thank you for everything.
See you. All right.
Thank you for getting the word out.
All right.
The reason we would oppose this proposal is primarily because of the lack of local control over our own townships. We feel that if they are mandating 25% of the power be produced from renewable resources within Michigan, the state will come into our townships and tell us we have to put in a biomass production facility, or we have to put in wind turbines in our recreational areas. I'm certain our residents would not want that.
So you believe your residents would want local control over where, and be part of the discussion as to where renewable energy should be used in Michigan?
Absolutely. I think that the local residents are going to want to know what's coming into their community and have a say in